The massive, scarred head of a 1,000-pound polar bear is the first thing 70-year-old Martha sees as she drifts back into a terrifying consciousness. She is lying at the bottom of a jagged ice ravine, her right leg shattered and her body screaming in agony. But the physical pain is instantly eclipsed by the sight of the world's most efficient killing machine looming over her. The bear's hot, fishy breath clouds in the freezing air inches from her face as its black nose twitches, searching for the scent of life in her failing body. Martha is trapped, pinned against the ice by a fall that should have killed her, only to wake up in the shadow of a predator that could end her life with a single swipe. She closes her eyes, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs, wondering if this is the final brutal chapter of her life. But as she waits for the crushing weight of its jaws, a strange, hauntingly familiar sound vibrates through the bear's chest, a soft, rhythmic huffing that sends a jolt of recognition through her fading mind. To understand how a 70-year-old woman ended up at the mercy of an Arctic giant, we have to look back 10 years to a morning that defied every law of the wild. Martha lived a solitary life on the edge of the tundra, a place where the wind is the only neighbor and the silence is as thick as the permafrost. She was a woman of the north, hardened by decades of winter, but nothing could have prepared her for what she found during a routine perimeter check. In the hollow of a frozen snowbank lay a dead mother bear, her body already claimed by the relentless cold. And huddled against that lifeless fur was a tiny, shivering ball of white, a cub, no larger than a house cat, its eyes wide with a terror that no living thing should face alone. In the Arctic, an orphaned cub is a death sentence. The natural order demanded that Martha walk away to let the wilderness take back what it had created. But Martha saw more than a predator in those black, pleading eyes. She saw a soul. She scooped the freezing cub into her parka, feeling its tiny heart racing against her chest, and brought him into the warmth of her cabin. She named him Snow. For the first few months, Martha didn't sleep for more than 2 hours at a time. She was a surrogate mother to a creature built for the kill bottle, feeding him a rich formula of goat's milk and fish oil, warming his shivering body with her own blankets. The bond that formed between them was something that defied scientific explanation. Snow didn't just see Martha as a source of food. He saw her as his world. He would follow her from room to room, his oversized paws sliding on the wooden floor, making small chirping sounds of affection that Martha began to understand as clearly as human speech. He would nuzzle into the crook of her neck, his soft fur smelling of the clean, cold wind, and for a while the cabin was a sanctuary where the laws of the wild didn't apply. But as the seasons turned, the tiny ball of fluff transformed into a powerhouse of muscle and bone. Snow grew with a speed that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. By his third year, he weighed over 400 pounds. He could crack a frozen log with a playful swat, and his presence could no longer be hidden from the small community of hunters and rangers nearby. The whispers turned into official warnings. Martha's neighbors were terrified, convinced that the bear's instincts would eventually override his love for the woman who raised him. They saw a monster waiting to happen. Martha saw a gentle giant who still wanted to hide his head in her lap when the thunder rolled across the plains. Finally, the ultimatum came from the authorities, cold and final. Snow had to be returned to the high Arctic, or he would be destroyed for the safety of the public. The day of the release was a gut-wrenching betrayal that Martha feared would haunt her forever. She had to trick him into a transport cage, watching as his eyes turned from playful curiosity to a heartbreaking confusion as the iron bars slid shut. She drove him hundreds of miles north, deep into the uninhabited wilderness where no human tracks marred the snow. When she finally opened the door, Snow didn't bolt for freedom. He stepped out slowly, looking back at Martha, waiting for the command to come home for the treat he always received after a long journey. Martha had to do the hardest thing of her life. She had to scream at him, throwing rocks at the ground and waving her arms until the bear, confused and hurt, finally turned his back on her. She watched through a veil of tears as his white form merged with the horizon, leaving her standing in a silence that felt like a grave. She told herself it was for his own good. She told herself that in the wild he would forget the woman with the milk bottle and the warm blankets. 10 years passed and Martha grew older, her body becoming as fragile as the ice she walked upon. She never stopped thinking about Snow, wondering if he had survived the brutal winters or if he had fallen to a hunter's rifle. Then came the day of the accident. A sudden whiteout blizzard caught her miles from her cabin. The world turned into a featureless void of swirling white, and in her frantic search for shelter, Martha didn't see the edge of the hidden ravine. She fell 20 feet, landing on a shelf of ice that shattered her leg and pinned her beneath a heavy slab of frozen earth. As the sun began to set, the temperature plummeted to 40 below. Martha knew that even if the search parties came, they would never find her in time. She was a frozen ghost waiting for the end. That's when the wolves arrived. A pack of 6, lean and desperate, had followed the scent of her blood. They circled the rim of the ravine, their amber eyes glowing with a predatory hunger that made Martha's blood run cold. The alpha, a massive gray male with a scarred muzzle, began to pick his way down the slope, his teeth bared in a silent snarl. Martha clutched a jagged piece of ice, a pathetic weapon against a pack of professional killers. She closed her eyes, praying for a quick end as the alpha lunged. But before the wolf could reach her, the very air seemed to explode. A roar that shook the ice beneath her echoed through the ravine, followed by a blur of white fur that moved with the speed of a lightning strike. A massive polar bear, the same one looming over her now, had dropped into the ravine like a vengeful god. With a single devastating blow, he sent the alpha wolf spiraling across the ice, its ribs crushed instantly. The rest of the pack, sensing a power far beyond their own, turned and fled into the darkness. The bear didn't pursue them. He didn't roar in triumph. Instead, he turned his massive head toward the woman lying in the snow. This is the moment Martha woke up to the terrifying reality of a predator standing over his prey. But as the bear leans in closer, Martha sees something that stops her breath. On the bear's left ear is a small jagged notch, a scar from a frostbite injury he had sustained as a cub. The same one Martha had treated with salve and bandages 10 years ago. Snow. She gasps, her voice a fragile thread in the wind. The bear pauses. His posture softens, the predatory tension draining out of his massive frame. He leans down and begins to lick the frozen tears from her cheeks with a tongue as rough as sandpaper. The chirping sound returns a low, guttural vibration of pure love. He hasn't forgotten. Through 10 years of survival, through the hardening of his wild instincts, the memory of the woman who saved his life remained the anchor of his soul. But the night is far from over. The storm is getting worse, and Martha is losing the battle against the cold. Her breathing is shallow, her skin turning a deathly shade of blue. Snow seems to sense the life fading from her. He doesn't try to pull her from the ice. He knows he is too strong, that his claws would only cause more damage. Instead, he does something that no scientist would ever record. He lies down directly on top of her, carefully distributing his massive weight so as not to crush her, but close enough that his incredible body heat begins to seep into her frozen limbs. He curls his long, thick neck around her head, shielding her from the biting wind with his own body. He becomes a living furnace, a mountain of fur and muscle dedicated to keeping a single human heart beating. Throughout the long, dark hours of the Arctic night, Snow remains a silent guardian. Whenever Martha's eyes drift shut, he nudges her gently with his nose. A soft, huffing sound, encouraging her to stay awake, to keep fighting. She talks to him in the darkness, her voice growing weaker, telling him about the cabin, the goats, and how proud she is of the magnificent king he has become. The bear listens, his ears twitching at the sound of the voice that once sang him to sleep. It is a scene of unbelievable beauty and raw survival. A predator protecting a protector. A circle of life that has come to a beautiful, heart-pounding close. When the first light of dawn touches the rim of the ravine, the sound of rotors cuts through the air. A rescue helicopter, guided by a lucky glimpse of the bear's white fur against the dark ice of the ravine, begins its descent. The rescuers look down in horror, seeing what they think is a bear feeding on a victim. They prepare to fire tranquilizers, but as they get closer, they see the bear stand up and move away from the woman's body. He doesn't charge the helicopter. He doesn't hide. He stands on the ridge, his silhouette tall and proud against the rising sun, watching as the medics scramble down to Martha. Martha is barely conscious as they lift her onto the stretcher, but she manages to turn her head toward the ridge. Snow is there. His white coat stained with the dust of the ravine. His eyes fixed on her. He waits until he sees her hand move a weak wave of goodbye before he turns and begins his long trek back into the high Arctic. He had done his job. He had paid back a debt that many thought a wild animal could never understand. The rescuers are speechless. They find the dead wolf, they see the tracks, and they realize that Martha hadn't been attacked. She had been guarded. The story of Martha and Snow has become a northern legend about the miraculous bond between humanity and the natural world. Despite her permanent injuries and never crossing paths with the king of the ice again, Martha spent her life retelling her journey as a testament that kindness and compassion will always create miracles that are never truly lost, even in the wildest corners of our world.
Thanks for watching. If this polar bear story touched you, please like and subscribe to see more stories like this.